The
social construct
of racism.
#BLM.
What are social constructs? They are ideas/concepts that a community creates. It is also the way a group of people perceive something together. This perception is created by socializing.
Some people like to consider laws and language to be social constructs, but I think a social construct should be something that society structured by interaction or socializing, rather than necessity or logic. An example of a social construct is the way people perceive color. We came together at some point to say pink is for the girls, and blue, for boys.
In the 1920s to 1940s, pink was considered to be a color for little boys because red was considered to be for grown men. Since pink is pretty much red with less of its own color, pink was perceived to be a color for little boys as a symbol of his inevitable manhood. As if he is filling into his grown man body or has not yet filled into it, just as it would be if you would filled in the color pink with more of its own red color. This is actually pretty cool, because it pertains to the ideas and rules of the color spectrum. The scientific way to dilute red would be with white.
Racism I consider to be something that has yet to be analyzed from a technical standpoint. Therefore, their definitions are only based on what the act carries out or its effect on the victim. But none of them dwell any deeper than just prejudice. The way we perceive racism now has never given the necessary detail to recognize and fix the problem. Understanding prejudice by a textbook definition creates an understanding of prejudice as different levels of
racism.
The spectrum of these levels are between having racist thoughts by keeping them to yourself, being outspoken about being racist, to committing violent acts in the idea of racism. There is no way to take precautions or spot early signs of it with this kind of perception. The person guilty of being prejudiced is only told that it is wrong and that he must conduct himself in a more constructive way in society. It is pretty much a slap on the wrist. Of course, if they commit higher crimes, they will be punished more severely. But the reform they undergo doesn't work because the structure of their prejudice is not clearly stated. Therefore, they can't break the pattern of prejudice if it isn't broken with the consequences of their actions. To fix a problem, one must recognize the problem. What is the problem?
Ego, lack of social development.
Social development. Oh, that is a good one. This will surely be on another video.
Yes, quite so.
Subjects of poor parenting, or little of it, fear, self-hatred, and unfulfilled or intense desire to complete an idea.
What do all these things have in common? All these ideas and responses, when being processed by the brain, will cause the brain chemical dopamine. This brain processing occurs in the part of the brain considered as the reward system. Each time the brain initiates the ideas or desires they want to fulfill, the reward system will reinforce those thoughts and even help drive them. I can get more in depth about this chemistry to explain the process more thoroughly and denote the effects such as mental, emotional and physical responses like stress, outbursts, or twitching/jitters. But that is another subject in which I will cover in a segment I want to call Dopa. I also know of a way to change the thought processes of these kind of people or others who have trouble with any kind of mental health complication. This will also be covered in the segment Dopa. Until we find some way to socially reform ourselves in such a way that racial standing can completely expire or at least be disregarded to avoid any unnecessary casualties while still responding
diligently
to intense altercations, as we should, because of our high cognitive ability. Standing united against these kinds of problems in society and speaking out against it is the best way to solve the problem of racism. If there is active racism in your neighborhood, I am almost certain that you can create a petition to attempt to move the person from that society and into one where they can be amongst people where that person will be able to exercise his pursuit of happiness without disturbing the pursuit of others.
El pueblo unido jamás será vencido.
El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido.